Welcome to the Iron Self podcast, where we jump into health, fitness, mindset, and becoming the best version of yourself. Today with your hosts, Mike and Kayla Minion. Welcome back to the Iron Self podcast.
Hey guys.
So on today's episode, we are talking about next level progress and results. How do we drive the progress? How do we drive results? And how long does it take?
Very complex answer. So progression takes a different amount of time for everybody, and progression looks different depending on what we are looking to progress through in life.
I think that's a great way to explain it. And I think that sometimes we don't always necessarily realize how far we've progressed until we do some reflection and we look back at how far we come. So my idea for this podcast came the other day when I was doing some chin-ups and I was like, wow, I can do 11 now. And then I was helping a client do some chin-ups and I was showing her how I started. And when I saw how she was starting out and I reflected on my own journey and I realized, wow, I started exactly where she was about a year and a half ago and now I'm up to 11. Now, that doesn't sound like a big feat. Like, hey, okay, a year and a half ago you started at 1 and now you're at 11. But that's huge. That shows me how much strength I've built in my upper body, in my body in general, and seeing that progression over time. So I know where she's going to go and I know the journey that she's going to have. And maybe she'll progress faster than I did because I didn't prioritize it as one of my big progression items. But it's just really cool to watch that journey over time and to look back and go, wow, look how far I came.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So progression in everything looks different. That's the big thing, right? Like going from 1 chin-up to 11 chin-ups is huge. It's the same thing as somebody that is starting bench pressing, and maybe when they start bench pressing, it's just the bar, and then, adding weights as we go. Now, progression through workouts is one thing, right? That's like, okay, well, we make sure that we have a rep range, and then we want to bring our reps up with the same weight, and then once we get to the max of the rep range, we drop our reps down, but increase the weights, and this is what progression is.
We call that progressive overload.
That is quite literally the definition of a progressive overload of your muscles. Now, progression looks different for everything, like I keep saying, though, because if you look at your life, at your mindset, and the progression that you've had throughout your life with your mindset, progression looks different again for everybody.
So let's start with defining progression. Let's start with workouts, then we'll move on to nutrition, and then we'll move on to mindset, and then we'll talk about whole body recomp.
Yeah,
that work?
Yeah, 100%.
That way you guys can pick and choose which part of this you want to listen to.
Structure it a little bit.
Let's structure it out. Okay, so progressive overload we kind of touched on in regards to your workouts. So like Mike said, that's increasing your reps and increasing your load over time. And so making sure that every workout you're pushing yourself either one more rep or an extra 5 pounds or whatever that might be in regards to creating that progressive overload. Keep pushing it. Now that doesn't mean every week that you progress. Maybe one week you're stalled at the same weight as last week. That's okay. But we just want to keep that same level of effort. And so something we call rate of perceived exertion.
Yeah, so RP is a great way to do it. How hard did that workout feel? How exhausted are you by the end of the workout? Another thing that I like to do to help some of my clients progress is getting a little bit creative with the workouts, because like Kayla was saying, not all the times the weights can come up because inherently our muscles haven't gained enough fiber to be able to push a heavier weight, let's say, or a heavier load. So sometimes when we hit those plateaus, ways to progress past those, we'll call them sticking points, are with isometric holds and isometric like pushes. So again, bench press, if you are stuck at, you cannot get over that 135 mark or whatever it is for your bench press, maybe you set the bar and load a couple plates on so it's way too heavy to push. You're like, yeah, 315 pounds. I can't even make that budge. Great. So loading it that heavy and then quite literally pushing into that as hard as you can, which is called an isometric, is going to build that muscle, the muscle fiber faster as well. So wherever your sticking point is, if you find that when you bring the bar down to your chest and then you start to push, you can't physically get it off your chest, well then you set that bar nice and close, and that's where you do that isometric hold, that isometric push, because it actually gains muscle 15 to 20% faster than actual working reps.
That's a great idea.
Fun
right?
facts.
Fun facts. So we talked about rate of perceived exertion. The other thing that you can look at is reps in reserve. And reps in reserve is great in regards to saying, okay, how many more reps could I do with good form? So we want to always have 2 to 3 reps in reserve. You know that I could probably do 2 more with good form. But you know what? I'm going to stop here because this is really difficult. Rate of perceived exertion says on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is this exercise or this workout? And we call it perceived exertion because if you're having a really tired day, you might find that workout extra hard. Or if you're really low on like food nutrients, carbohydrates specifically, you might find that workout extra hard. So when we have that rate of perceived exertion, is like, how hard do I feel like I'm working today? And if you're noticing I'm always at a 6, how can I make this a 7? Or if you're noticing I'm always at a 10, let's try and dial it back because we want to prevent overtraining. And if you're in a 9-10 all the time, there is a chance that you could bring on some overtraining.
Yeah, 100%. Overtraining for the general population, it's pretty hard to hit that level of overtraining unless you are in the gym 6 to 7 days a week for like 2-hour workouts. So the average population, overtraining isn't something that we need to overly concern ourselves with, as long as you are staying, again, like Kayla was saying, within that rate of perceived exertion. You know, you're not going to 10 every time. You're not pushing yourself that hard every single workout. Now, picking one exercise in every workout and pushing yourself to that complete exhaustion is 100% okay. Save it for the very end of your workout. And work yourself until you physically can't move that weight. That will get you the most muscle recruitment, and it's at the end of your workout, so you will get that time to recover after, right? If you did that at the very start of your workout, it's like a pre-exhaustion technique. Unless you are a top of the top athlete, that is not going to serve you.
Now, when we're looking at progress, I want to make sure that we do touch on lifting things that are challenging to us. The amount of people that go into the gym and go through the motions of a workout, just because you go through a motion of a workout does not mean you're doing the workout in the sense of getting the results from that workout. So making sure that you're pushing yourself a little bit outside that comfort zone, lifting weights that are challenging to you. Don't just pick up the 10-pound dumbbells because you know you can lift them.
Pink dumbbells.
We want to make sure that we are pushing ourselves outside of that comfort zone, because it's outside of that comfort zone where that change and that progress begins to take place. Making sure that you're also choosing exercises that are challenging you. If you are excellent at a back squat, maybe you should try a front squat, because maybe your front squat isn't excellent. Because when we are changing up the exercises, not every workout, I mean every block, right? Our blocks are 6 to 8 weeks. So if you're changing up your workouts every 6 to 8 weeks, or less, depending, right? Or less.
Depending on what you're doing.
Depending on your goals. But making sure that you're changing out every block just so that you are getting different muscle recruitments, different way of challenging the muscles, different exercises to challenge the muscles. Because if we always do what we've always done, we're going to remain the same.
Yeah. One thing that I will say, again, another little caveat to your gym workouts or when you are working out, track everything. Write it down in a notebook. If you have an app that tracks it, that's great. But somewhere that you physically can see last year what you did. So then you can see over time, oh, hell yeah, I've progressed. Last year I was only squatting 185 pounds. This year I'm squatting 315 pounds. So being able to see that progression over time really does help boost that confidence in the gym. And then you'll feel really good about it. It's like, oh man, I can't believe that, I started curling 10-pound weights and now I'm curling 35-pound weights.
The amount of people that don't track their progress, right? Or they don't look at their workouts as progress. So many people put emphasis on the scale or on physical body composition changes versus, hey, I'm going into this workout and look how much strength I built. Look how much more energy I have, or I'm feeling better, I'm eating better, I'm just making healthier choices overall. These are other metrics that we want to look at for that progress over time, because if we always put the emphasis on the scale, then we might not actually see the changes. And I want to bring that into conversation later when we talk a little bit more about body recomposition.
No, perfect.
Okay. Anything else that we missed maybe on workouts specifically? We're looking at progression through our workouts.
No, the basis is easy. You have your set workouts, like Kayla was saying, for whether, if it's like a heavy lifting set, it might just be a 4-week block. If it is hypertrophy, you're looking at 6 to 8 week blocks, and progressing your movements steadily through that. So that means, setting your rep ranges, working your weights up as you work your reps up, right? So reps come to the top end of the rep range with whatever specific weight you're at, and then you increase the weight and drop those reps down to the bottom end and then work your way back through that rep range.
With good form.
With beautiful form.
Form first before progressing through anything.
When I was younger, when I was the ego lifter back in the gym, when I started firefighting, I was like, I am just going to throw 300 pounds on this bar and squat it. My body could do it because our bodies are beautiful things. You will find a way, but it will destroy you.
This is totally the difference between males and females, because when I would go to the gym and I'd be like, oh, I have to pick up dumbbells, let me grab the 5s and I'll just curl these 5s.
Well, and this comes back to comparison, because when the ego-driven Mike when I was younger would have gone to the gym, seen somebody else that, looked similar to me lifting heavy weights. They've been in the gym much longer, but I was like, huh, if that guy can do it, I can do it, because I'm going to compare myself and then I'm going to lift that. So everybody's progress and progression in the gym looks completely different. So don't compare yourself to anybody else that you see. You are in direct competition with yourself in the gym. And that is the mindset that you should always have, competing against what you were last week during that workout and just trying for 1% better.
Love it. All right, progress with nutrition.
Oh boy.
Now this is
Kayla's strong. No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
this is a whole can of worms, really, because progress with nutrition can look different. So whether we're tracking portion sizes or macros, it's irrelevant. It really depends on what our goals are in relation to, do we need to be at maintenance calories? Do we need to be in a deficit? Do we need to be in a surplus? If you want more information on that, check back on the episode on the myth of the calorie deficit.
Everything to do with it, yeah.
Yeah, we talk way more in depth about it. But when I talk about progression with nutrition, it's really about how do I progress the quality of the nutrients that I am consuming, right? Yeah. So we used to eat what I would call fairly clean as fitnessy people. Like we would have vegetables and we would have fruit or whatever, but then we would also, consume chips.
We would also have cake
and donuts and all of those wonderful things. And they were tasty and delicious and very poor nutrient density. And I never thought I could see my life without those things.
Yeah. So progress means starting to value yourself above your treats.
Or also really finding joy in the other foods that you consume that maybe are a little bit more nutrient dense. I mean, last night we were eating this like stir-fried bok choy, and honestly, I probably could have eaten a giant bowl of it. I'm like,
She had like 2 cups of it, and then she was like, I wish I had more bok choy.
I wish I had more. Like, it was so tasty and delicious with some sesame oil on it. And my mouth was salivating. I'm like salivating thinking about it right now. But to me, I was like, this is just divine. Yeah. Yes, of course, I love donuts and cookies and all of those things. Like, no person on the face of the planet is going to be like, well, I don't like cookies. Nobody likes a chocolate chip cookie. I'm like, come on. What kind of a person doesn't like a chocolate chip cookie? Maybe you don't. I don't know.
So progress. Let's get back on track here.
No, but I have a place that I'm going with this chocolate chip cookie analysis.
I don't believe it, but okay.
Okay. But that temptation is always going to be there. Yeah. And this is something that I've really started to learn on this prep, is it doesn't matter whether I'm on prep or I'm not on prep. The temptation for those nutrient void
deficient food options
are always going to be there. They're always going to be highly palatable, and of course my body's always going to crave them because they're going to be high calorie density, and our mind is tricked to look for high calorie density. If you open the fridge, your brain automatically goes cheese, dairy, like whatever.
It's a beautiful survival
whatever
machine.
The high calorie density items is, your brain starts picking those out. Your brain isn't going down to the fruit and vegetable drawer and going, I'd like some celery right now. Your brain is usually picking out the high calorie density items. So highly palatable foods tend to be nutrient void, but very calorie dense. And of course, those are always going to be there. But the change and that progression is, that doesn't mean that every time they're there, I need to have one.
Yeah.
And that is a huge turning point. When you make that decision that it is a choice to have it, it is fitting my goals or not fitting my goals, or you know what, I don't really need one today because I had a treat yesterday. making those choices, that's where progression changes. And I noticed the biggest progression was when we were out grocery shopping or whatever we were doing, and we were hungry. Our whole family was hungry. And I remember going into a Walmart actually, and I was like, we go down all the food aisles, and normally I'd grab like beef jerky and some potato chips. That was like a normal
Used to
snack.
be a staple.
Staple, like normal snack. And I was like, well, that doesn't really, like, yes, beef jerky fits my goals right now, but I really wasn't having a hankering for beef jerky. And I left there with a kombucha and some raspberries, and I think that you left there with a pear and maybe some mixed nuts or something like that. And when we got into the car, and I looked at Mike, and I gave him like a high five, and I was like, we did it. Like, this is it. This is progress. This is huge, because we are now demonstrating not only for ourselves, for our clients, and for our children that this is what healthy choices looks like. I don't need to have chips all the time. Also, my palate has changed. It takes about 14 days for your palate to change, but my palate has changed, and now they're very salty. I'm not really craving them. In fact, I don't really enjoy how salty they are on a consistent basis. If you're ready to make a change in your life, step into the best version of you, check out our Iron Self Transformation Program. Find more info on our website, www.ironbodycoach.com.
So here's the thing with progression in diet though, okay? Just because you're hearing Kayla and I talk about our progression through diet doesn't mean it's going to be the same as yours. Again, progression looks different for absolutely everybody in absolutely every aspect of their life. So just because you're not eating as much vegetables or considering beef jerky even as an option instead of that bag of chips doesn't mean that you can't progress your diet too, because when you look at what you are currently eating, maybe it just means instead of having a sleeve of cookies when you go out, when you're like, oh, I'm going to have cookies because I want cookies, maybe instead of having a sleeve of Oreos, you have one, right? That is progress. Progress is not eating an entire bag of chips. I used to be the worst for that. Family-sized Costco bag of chips. And I would be like, hey, guess who's going to eat that entire thing in 1 to 2 sittings? It was this guy. So progression for me was slowing down on the chips and not even buying those Costco-sized bags because I knew I'd eat them.
Right, when you buy food and you're like, I'm not going to eat this, bullshit.
The intent is to eat that and enjoy the hell out of it.
You didn't buy that with the intention of not eating it.
And the second part of the progression that I want to talk about with food is being conscious of our food choices and accepting when we make choices that don't suit our goals. We consciously made that choice. There is no point in beating yourself up and then going back the next day and being like, oh, well, I did it yesterday, so I'm just going to keep doing it today. It's like, no. Let that food choice go and move forward with your life. You don't have to dwell on the fact that yesterday or the day before you might have eaten something that wasn't in line with your goals. I had a Facebook post about this yesterday because so many of our clients, so many of the people that we know and that we train do an amazing job, but then when they have an off moment, they'll be like, they reach for something that their old self used to reach for, and they reach for it and they're like, oh, I'm gonna have that, and then they just let it all go for the entire day or for the next day after that, and it just boils over and keeps going.
They have those bucket moments.
Progression means, hey, I can get back on the horse, back on track. Sure, acknowledge that you made that choice, conscious choice, and move forward from it. Don't dwell on it. Don't continue that vicious cycle and continue hating on yourself. I can't believe I ate like that for a day. You made the choice to eat like that for a day. If you ate a sleeve of cookies, move on. You don't have to eat the second sleeve. You don't have to eat the entire box of cookies tomorrow. Move on with the rest of your day. Grab something healthy next.
Well, and it doesn't have to be like labeling food as good or bad, okay? So anything in excess is not great for you. And that can be healthy food too. If you eat too many bananas, that might not be great for your
Potassium
body.
levels are way too high.
Well, it might spike your blood sugar. Like, there's so much that goes into this. So anything in excess is not great for you. You're talking about our people that get the fuck it moments and then they just derail the train and they keep derailing it.
May as well just keep going.
There's also the other side of that spectrum where there's the people that now they beat themselves up and now they punish themselves, quote unquote, with exercise. And they're like, well, I fell off track yesterday, so I'm just going to do extra cardio
I need
today.
to go on a 30-mile run.
I need to burn off these calories. Like, no, that's not how this works. So progress with your food choices and your nutrition takes time. When I say look at where Mike and I are now, I'm using it as an example because you need to understand how long it took us to make these choices. So one thing that you'll hear us always preach is 1% better, right? When I make a conscious choice to be 1% better, what does that look like? Over time, that's going to look like 100% better.
7% a week.
14%
every 2 weeks, 21 and 3, 28% better in a month. That's huge.
And so as long as I'm consciously choosing to make better choices over time, my choices will change because my palate changes, because my desire changes, because my goals change and shift. So making those progressions over time, you don't need to change everything at once. Like Mike said, start with one thing. And one of my favorite things to suggest to people to start with is start with breakfast. Make breakfast amazing, make it protein dense, make it nutrient dense, and you might notice that that just impacts how you show up the rest of your day with your food choices. Maybe all of a sudden you don't have those cravings and you don't binge on those highly palatable foods. Also, stop buying the highly palatable foods that you don't want to eat.
Don't say it's for your kids. We're on to you. No.
Yeah, I mean, if you're buying granola bars and you're like, these are for my kids, buy the kind you don't like.
Yeah.
If you know that you're a person that's going to eat them.
Buy them for your kids.
Yeah, like just that's how we always suggest it. Or find different choices that maybe are a little bit healthier for you, for your children, and try different things. That's where progress comes. I didn't know I always liked bok choy. One day I bought it at the grocery store and I was like, how do you cook this? And I looked it up and I found a recipe online, so I cooked it. And that's kind of where I figured out, oh my gosh, I love this vegetable. But it's been progress over time to start trying new things, stepping outside that comfort zone.
Yeah, and the last thing that I do want to say about progress with your nutrition, progressing your relationship with food. That's a huge one because so many people have an unhealthy relationship with food, that mindset behind, I'm going to punish myself, this food is good, this food is bad. Food is food. Food is fuel at the end of the day. It's what we use to nourish our bodies to move through our days. So stop having the relationship with food where food is good and food is bad. Just starting to pay more attention and maybe take an active learning approach into what actually fuels our body more efficiently than something else, and then creating our lifestyle around that.
Well, and how does it make your body feel, right? Yeah. So when you're eating junk food and
dairy,
you feel sluggish. And you feel sluggish and tired, and then all of a sudden you eat high nutrient density food like your vegetables and your lean proteins and some whole grain starches, and you're like, wow, I actually feel energized. I didn't lose energy throughout the day. Okay, well, I actually feel better on this. Like my people that need that afternoon coffee, what are you consuming for breakfast? What does your lunch look like? Why are you getting that crash at 2 or 3 p.m.? If you're getting that crash at 2 or 3 p.m., that's telling me that there's something going on with the nutrients before that that's causing those energy levels to dip.
Willing to bet you're not eating protein dense at breakfast and you're probably not eating enough carbs.
There's so many things that could be going into this. Okay, next one. Progress with body recomposition.
Ooh, this is a fun one.
This is a fun
You dive in.
Oh,
dive away, my love.
Body recomposition takes time for each and every single person. We cannot pinpoint when your abs are going to come in, when your shoulders are going to pop, and when you're going to lose that visceral fat. Every person's body is very different. All we can do is keep focusing on being better, moving better, challenging our body, eating more nutrient density, and eating quality food. And then if you're looking for fat loss, it's eating in a calorie deficit.
Yeah. So something that we kind of preach to our clients all the time is the fact that everybody's body is going to respond differently. So really becoming that experiment, like the scientist of your own body, right? Like for Kayla, when she eats in a calorie deficit, forever, it takes probably 2 months, 2.5 months of plateauing, and then all of a sudden it'll be like pounds are gone.
Yeah, so I've been at the same weight for the last 2 months, and then I just dropped like 4 pounds.
And then it drops 4, 6, 10 pounds, whatever it is, but all of a sudden it'll just drop. For myself, if I am not eating 5,000 plus calories, I'm not putting weight on. That's insane, but it's different for everybody again, right? So in the way that my body works, I will stay still at my weight forever, and I want to put weight on, and then all of a sudden it'll be like, whoop, it comes up. It's like, oh, okay, there we go. That's what we were looking for.
So I think a lot of people want immediate results, right? They see, oh, well, my calories are calculated. I should be losing a half pound to a pound a week, or I should be losing 2 pounds a week, or whatever that might be. Stop shooting on yourself and start looking at where is the other progress coming. So for myself, being plateaued at a weight, I was really upset about it because I'm getting ready for competition. But
I told her to stop stepping on the scale because at the end of the day, it's not serving her at that point.
it's true, it wasn't. It was mentally draining for me. But the body recomposition was coming. I could see the changes in the photos. I noticed the difference in how my clothes were fitting. That's where I was like, okay, the scale isn't changing, but
Something's happening.
my body is changing. So this is where we can't always stick to a number on a scale. We have to start looking at what else is changing in the process. And then in order to get those body recompositions, it means that I need to be either eating at maintenance or under maintenance, or if you're looking for more muscle, above maintenance.
Yeah.
Depending on your goal. So I need to be eating for my goal, and I need to be exercising and working out for my goal, and challenging my body, feeling each muscle in the exercise that it's meant for. So if you're doing a standing overhead press and you're feeling this in your back and not your shoulders, you're probably not doing it with great form. So maybe I need to down the weights so that I can get the form first, right? Just like we talked about at the beginning of this conversation. Form first, making sure that we're feeling the muscle activate. That mind-muscle connection becomes way more imperative than going through the motions of the workout.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Body recomposition is that fun thing, right? So, like Kayla was saying, one of the biggest things that I recommend for everybody when they are in a weight loss, weight gain, it doesn't matter. If you are looking to change your body in any single way, measurements and photos. Photos over measurements, actually. I mean, if you are comfortable and confident in your measuring skills, making sure that you measure the same place every time, 100% measurements are great. But overall, taking pictures of yourself, uncomfortable, vulnerable pictures of yourself in your underwear, is a beautiful way to track your progress, because you might not see it because you look at yourself every day in the mirror. And inherently, when we look at ourselves every single day in the mirror, you won't notice the changes day to day. But if you take pictures and then 6 weeks later, after eating properly, according to your goals, and working out according to your goals, you will see that change 6 to 8 weeks down the road. With that second picture, you'll be like, oh man, I can actually see my tummy starting to tuck in, my shoulders have rolled back properly, like my chest is looking more full, whatever it is. But without taking those pictures, again, you see yourself every day in the mirror, so you don't notice those changes. And lots of times your loved ones, the ones who see you every day as well, don't even notice it as much either. So it's like, have you noticed anything? Like if I put some muscle on here, and it's like, well, maybe. And then you look at the pictures, you're like, hell yes, you did. Good job.
Right. So I'll give you the example. We just did my weigh and measure this past weekend, and I was pretty sure that I hadn't really changed much. When I did my side-by-side mock-up from November to now and from February to now, I was just blown away because, like Mike said, I see myself in the mirror every day. I don't, and this is the other piece of this, it's a little bit of that body dysmorphia. I don't see what the picture sees. Yeah. So when I see that picture, I'm like, oh, that's what I look like?
When she looked at her back picture, it was the cutest thing. She was like, is that what I look like? It's like, hell yeah, you look amazing.
Because I don't see it because I see myself in maybe a different light. But I felt the same way last time I competed, where it didn't matter the weight, I still felt like this older version of me. So what I have started doing is sitting down, breathing into this new version of me, acknowledging the changes that I am now seeing, and speaking kindly to my body. Part of that speaking kindly is because I know my body is made up of 80% water. So if I speak kindly to my body, I know my body is going to respond better. I know that sounds a little bit of like woo-woo magic, but there is science to back this.
Emoto.
Look at Dr. Emoto's water experiment.
We'll actually link that in the show notes.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And when you speak kindly and you speak with positive energy towards water molecules, it changes their shape. And if you're 80% water and you start speaking kindly to yourself and giving yourself those compliments and that gratitude, that's got to change something. That's got to speak to something. And I know there's no science to back it on the human body, but I truly, truly believe it, because the more positive energy I speak to myself, the more I start to notice the changes, and the more aware I am of those changes. So it's a holistic thing, right? And so the other thing that you wanted to talk on was mindset, and I think
I was going to say this branches beautifully into mindset.
Yeah, so jump into that.
So for mindset, when you're looking at progressing your mindset, everybody's like, well, what do you mean by progressing your mindset? I'm already like, I'm pretty smart, I'm well educated.
I don't need mindset.
What does that mean? So many of our clients are like, I don't need that mindset mumbo jumbo. And I'm like, okay, I'll never push it. But being able to see yourself in a different light. I mean, everybody has to live with themselves their entire life. So being able to, without any reservations, without any judgment, truly say that you love yourself, the person that you are, and meaning that is a huge progression for everybody.
And that starts with acceptance. And most people can't accept the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? They can accept the good, but nobody wants to accept the bad and the ugly.
Yeah. Learning to forgive yourself is huge. I mean, everybody grows up. We're going to do things that we are not overly proud of throughout our lives at some point. And learning to accept those things that we went through, the person that we were, to become the person that we are, is freaking huge. That is a milestone. For myself anyways, it was learning to forgive that the kid that I was and all of the dumb things that I did, but to get me to the point where I am now, that is progression. Being out of that survival mind state of, constantly just grasping to try and get by because everything felt like it was stacked up against me, to being able to allow the amount of light and love that I have in this life and the energy that I get to give back now is absolutely amazing.
That it is a huge shift, and coming from self-acceptance and compassion for ourselves, stepping into that self-love, knowing that we are worthy of it. We are born worthy. You would never look at a baby and go, oh, that baby isn't worthy of love, right?
That thing is evil.
But at some point over time, that baby learns to this idea that they're not worthy. And so understanding that you were born worthy and you are always worthy of love and acceptance, and that is from the world around you, and that is from yourself. And it took me hitting rock bottom where I was on antidepressants, I was in bed and I couldn't get out of bed, to go, something needs to change. Some shift needs to change, because otherwise this world is not worth living. And like Mike said, you have to go from surviving to thriving. You have to move that pendulum, and the only person that can move that pendulum is you. And that's where that progression comes over time. And I look back and I look at that version of myself that I was back then, and I understand why I was there. I know what had happened and everything. But I also understand the resiliency that I built over time. I understand how far I've come. And I am so grateful for that time, because if I didn't hit rock bottom, I wouldn't know what it felt like to feel better and move up. I wouldn't know what it felt like to shift my mindset from this survival state to a thriving state, to understand that I am worthy and I am loved and I can give and receive love.
I love that. And the caveat to that is, even after you've achieved, quote unquote, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not in a survival state, I'm already in a good place within myself, I do have that self-love, so I'm already there. This is a lifelong thing. Learning how to elevate your mindset, whether that's practicing gratitude, whether that is being more mindful of your internal dialogue. Maybe when you see somebody outside of your friend group, maybe there is a judgment that is passed sometimes without even really realizing it and without vocalizing it. It's not like you're being a dick and being like, that guy's ugly or whatever it is, right? But maybe that is a thought that comes up in your head, and being able to remove those judgments that you place on others and removing judgments that you have against yourself, even at the very base level, that is progression. Learning how to be gratitude, learning how to appreciate all of the amazing things that happen for you day to day, not to you, but for you day to day. That is a progressive mindset, that growth mindset, that you are never in a fixed line in your life. You are always looking to see how you can progress not just your mindset, but your entire life, elevating your life day to day.
I love that. Let's elevate our lives. Let's step into that next level of progress in our body, in our nutrition, in our workouts, in our mindset. Just make it full approach, because we are all unique individuals. We are all worthy of these
We're all
changes.
unicorns.
We are all going to see progress over time if you just simply show up 1% better each day. And that's all we're really asking.
Remove the comparisons, remove the judgment, accept that everybody's progress looks different and that you will progress as long as you are willing to put in the effort.
Thank you guys so much for listening today. I hope you got some value out of this episode. Share it with your friends, your family members, your loved ones. Make sure you send us a message if you absolutely love these episodes. We'd love to hear from you, and we will see you next time.